Hello, thank you for joining us. My name is Michael Whitlow. I'm a Vice President in the Sales and Marketing Group here at Greystone. And today I'll be talking with Brad Straub, who is the Executive Vice President here at Greystone Communities. Brad's been here for about 18, 19 years, so a ton of experience, and has done a very valuable job for Greystone. So thank you for your time, Brad.
Appreciate it. Glad to help join you this morning on talking a little bit more about some of my background and where I see kind of the future for the business and as well as Greystone.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Why don't you kind of start with letting our audience know a little bit about your background and what brought you to Greystone.
Sure. No, absolutely. So, I started out in Greystone's planning and finance group, but I went to Texas A&M University. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting and a master's degree in management information systems. So while I'm a certified public accountant by training, I actually have never practiced public accounting. And so, did some time of that, in internships, decided that wasn't the right thing. So I actually went to work for a management consulting company called Bain & Company. Out of school, did that for 3 years. And so was working in a variety of different industries, worked in the airline industry, the baked goods with clients in the baked goods, retail and other different areas. And so, helping them to address questions related to how to better improve their business, and was traveling a ton, working long hours, and decided wanted to look for something else, and had Greystone as an opportunity that came up. And admittedly, I will tell you that, at first when you see senior living, it's not really a sexy industry, or you think, wait a second here, do I really want to? But I thought, I'll go talk to these folks and see a little bit about it, what it was. And, as I learned about the business, that it is more than just, there's a little bit of aspect of the real estate side. You have some of the hospitality, and then, more importantly, the healthcare aspect of that. It actually just intrigued me, and so joined Greystone in 2003 and have been here ever since. Continue to be intellectually challenged. I love working with the clients that you can see the tangible results of helping individuals. That the work that you're doing, unlike if you were out there doing audit where you're generating a report or something else like that, that you can actually see firsthand the benefit that you're providing to individuals. So.
Oh, that's so cool, and that your experience to get here is similar to a lot of the folks at Greystone, including myself. Once we've landed in this industry, we really value and love it. I mean, it's a great place, and that's one of the things we're trying to do, is get also the younger folks to say, hey, there's a big opportunity here in this industry.
Absolutely.
You mentioned working in the Plan and Finance Group originally, and your role here at Greystone, you have a lot of work with that department a lot.
Absolutely.
So can you talk to us a little bit about what Plan and Finance does and how those two disciplines work together for our clients?
Sure. So, the Planning and Finance Group, and I know that, a number of the folks that will be, listening to and seeing this podcast are benefiting from the results of the work that, starts with some of the Planning and Finance Group. But what our group, the Planning and Finance Group's role and responsibility is that we're on the very front end of helping to conceptualize, working with our development group and our marketing group, and even the management group. But the Planning and Finance Group is really responsible for doing the initial upfront market analysis, the financial feasibility assessment, to look at, as we have a new opportunity for a project, whether it be a redevelopment or a repositioning of an existing campus, an expansion of an existing campus, or building a brand new campus on a fresh piece of dirt, going out there and saying, what providers are in the market area today, what services are being offered, how are they doing from an occupancy standpoint. So we'll go out and do competitive visits, with not mystery shops per se, but we'll actually go out and visit those providers. Combine that with some of the demographic information to say how many seniors are within the market area, to come up with a recommendation on how many new apartments could be offered within the local market area. And then once we identify here's the appropriate number of projects, number of apartments that could be constructed, we'll then do a financial analysis to say, based on the revenues that could be generated from the monthly service fees and the entrance fees, and the cost that it would look at to construct it, is the project able to meet the financial performance metrics that a lender would be looking for to finance the project? And so we'll put together a operating budget pro forma, look at that, and then ultimately present that to the clients. Once a project gets approved and we're in the process of doing the pre-sales and the other aspects, the planning and finance group will help put together any of the residency agreements that are needed to help market the communities, the reservation agreements. We'll work with a client's attorney to secure any regulatory approvals that are necessary. And then, the largest component of it is that we'll work with the investment bankers to help secure the project financing. So, you'll see that, we're involved in the very upfront of the projects, helping to conceptualize it and look at and say, does this project work financially and meet all of the requirements that a lender is going to work for? And then, once we get into the actual development of the project, we'll help, work with those, investment bankers and others to secure the project financing. And then we continue to evaluate as project assumptions change. Is the project still financially viable?
That's a ton of stuff.
Absolutely.
That's so important and valuable to say. The due diligence that this department does, plan and finance, is that viability. Is this a good project, and how do we make this work best for everybody?
Sure. And part of it is getting input from so we can do the best of planning, but the real time that we start to see our people responding to that is when we get out into the market area, and that the marketing team is actually out there having the conversation with prospective residents and seniors, whether it be through a priority program or through the pre-sales and conversion process. And so, a lot of what we also are working with is adapting some of, whether it be the pricing, as we are out there and there's conversations. And, we may find that we thought that individuals, were going to primarily lean towards a 90% refundable contract option. But then let's say that everyone wants the 50% refundable option that has a lower monthly service fee, or maybe they want the 0% refundable that has a lower entrance fee. And so, a lot of the work that we'll do is to help take the input that we get from the marketing team that says, we need more people, we need more of the 50% refundable contracts. And our team will, the planning and finance group will go through and figure out how do we make that work, and still have a financially viable project. Or we might find that, we need more of a certain apartment style. And so, we'll run through the financial model and see how can we afford that. So it really is a kind of a collaborative approach that, while yes, we can do this upfront planning, 2 or 3 years before a project is going to start construction, but it's once we get out there and that the marketing team is talking to the prospective residents that we, get that input, and oftentimes have to adapt that.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful to hear. And really, every market's different. And you spoke to a little bit of it, but a lot of the communities that we work with here at Greystone or advise with are CCRCs, not-for-profit, life plan, entry fee type communities. And we're seeing a lot, of course, market to market, but really everywhere, there's a lot of growth in this industry. There's a lot of fee-for-service, for-profits that are going up all around us. With that model that has been very successful of the life plan CCRC model, it has been successful, it's still successful. Will that need to change or adapt as we move into the future to compete with the growing competition?
Certainly if you were to ask me 10 years ago, was a for-profit rental community considered competition? And I'm sure that, from your perspective, as well as you talk to some of your fellow marketing colleagues, that, most individuals would have said no, that rental community is not something that's considered competition. That, the prospect that's coming in to look to move to the CCRC or life plan community may look at other life plan communities or CCRCs, but they're not looking at the rental community. What we have seen is that, over the last 10 years, as the number of for-profit rental communities has come into play, and as you look at, the amenities, if you go into some of these, rental communities that are being developed today, they would have, they have the same amenities that you could get at a CCRC, and so it certainly is now part of the consideration that a prospective customer is having. And so, from a pricing standpoint and a sales standpoint, we're finding, even in the upfront planning, that we do have to consider those as potentially competitive communities, and so that has to get factored in as well to the consideration from a pricing and a value proposition standpoint. A lot of people have said, is the entrance fee-based community dead? Are we going, is that going to go away? And that the entrance fee-based community, there's always going to be an opportunity and a market for it. But what I have seen, at least as you've had more of these for-profit communities, is that it has made it more critical and incumbent on the community to figure out how do they sell the value proposition. So what is that benefit that they're getting? And so, oftentimes, it's the healthcare benefit or some type of healthcare benefit, whether it be life care, whether it be a line of credit program, whether it be a fixed dollar discount or a fixed percentage discount. And so, the way that, to help distinguish and differentiate, in addition to the not-for-profit benefit, the fact that you don't, if you run out of your assets, that you're not going to be evicted, it's really requiring that, even in the upfront planning, that we be very thoughtful about what that value proposition is and making sure through the healthcare benefit, looking at from a cost standpoint and what the actual dollars are that an individual is going to pay out of pocket, that you can clearly at least identify for them, why do I want to pick this, CCRC over the for-profit that's down the street that I just have a month-to-month rental contract under. And that's really created a number of some of the new contracts that we've come up with, the line of credit, the healthcare line of credit program that, allows the flexibility that if an individual has a long-term care insurance policy, that they can, use the benefit of that long-term care insurance policy, pay the market rate in the, assisted living or nursing care, similar to what they would have to do if they went into a rental community, is an option. But then if they want the predictability of the discounted care, that they have the ability to also use that line of credit as the discounted care. So we've, through the, some of the new contract options that we've offered, we've tried to at least help address some of those, value propositions, considerations, the choice that allows us to, better sell against the for-profit providers.
Yeah, a lot of what I'm hearing too, and we're talking about, is really the ability to adapt and provide options based on that market and that community and the specific needs there to really sell the value.
Absolutely.
And there's a ton of education, obviously, that comes along with that through, your team and the marketing team, and really going to the market and saying, hey, take a look at this from a different angle.
Sure.
Because I think most people, a lot of people out there are not as familiar with the CCRC model, as they are with the freestandings out there in the market.
Well, and I would say too, we've seen it on the healthcare side. So, for the longest time, the CCRC model was very much an all-inclusive monthly service fee. And so, so whether you were in assisted living, memory support, it was an all-inclusive fee. With the for-profit, one of the things that's required is that you've seen that most of the communities are now at a base level of care plus with level of care charges, that they have different tiers. And so, so that's required us to adapt at least how we, market and sell the communities and also plan the communities up front, is to, better compete with some of those for-profit on the healthcare side, that we are seeing that we're now basically matching and mirroring them with a base charge plus the different levels of care. So, to your point about the adaptation that we've seen, that, that's occurring not only on the independent living side, but also on the healthcare side.
You've seen, I can imagine, in your about 19 years here, you've seen a lot of change. You've seen a lot of innovation. You've talked about some of those changes you've made. What are some of the things you see coming in the future, might be happening now, or that are coming, that are innovations or changes within the industry?
So certainly over the last 10 years, a lot of the innovation has been on really the healthcare delivery side, so moving into more of the neighborhood and the household concept. What we're seeing right now on the healthcare side is that as certain states are allowing for a higher acuity resident in assisted living, that it's not atypical. About probably 60% of the new campuses that we're working on today don't have skilled nursing in the first phase.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that that's not going to have skilled nursing down the road, but we're seeing that you can offer a life care benefit or a healthcare discount without having skilled nursing. And so, I think that we'll continue to see as the skilled nursing environment changes, that we'll see more and more communities that aren't including skilled nursing in that first phase. That doesn't mean that it might not get added at a subsequent phase, but being able to offer a community that's independent living, assisted living, memory care, has outpatient therapy and rehab, for those individuals that do need a short-term stay and are getting discharged back to the house, but through Part B or some type of therapy. The other area that I would say that as I see some potential innovation and changes is, historically the continuing care retirement community has been focused on you move people through the continuum of care. So you move in an independent living, as your needs change, you move to assisted living, memory care, and then skilled nursing. And that, a lot of the business model and the economics is predicated on, getting people to move through that continuum so that you start to collect new entrance fees, and that it just kind of flows through that continuum. We're starting to see, and this has been something that's been experienced in communities. For those folks that are out there in the communities on a day-to-day from the operations perspective, they've seen residents that have brought in private duty aides, home care, staying in their independent living apartment, that people, if they have the resources, and quite frankly, most of the individuals that are moving into our communities today have the resources to potentially have private duty care. So, there's more of a willingness to embrace an age-in-place model, to where, people have the desire to move into, what, as an independent living resident, an apartment, and then wanting to continue to be able to receive services in those apartments. So we've seen a couple of providers as we're working with clients on some new campus projects that are looking at that age-in-place concept, and where perhaps that the independent living apartment is built to assisted living standards and licensed as assisted living, but you sell it as that you can move in as independent living, and as your needs change, that you're able to age in place. So I do think that we will start to see, and that we're going to continue to see, more of that adoption of an age in place concept, to where it may be that it's independent living and a memory support community. That as you look at that, when an individual needs memory care, that they'll certainly move to a separate component that's a secured environment that can address some of those wandering needs. But I do think that we're going to start to see a little bit more embracing some of that age-in-place concept.
Well, those are some great things you touch on. And again, through this conversation is this ability to adapt, plan for the future, so that there are options should we want to add this on. We've already built this in where we have the space, we have the resources. If the market sees the demand, then we can add additional options for the residents. So that's wonderful to hear. And in an industry that, as we talked about, we've gotten into and maybe never saw ourselves getting into.
Right.
Now that we're here, we see how dynamic it is. And from a standpoint of a finance and accounting and analytical, there's a lot that you get to experience, and a lot of things that you get to see and touch that you might not get to do in another industry.
Oh, absolutely. I've learned more about marketing than I ever would have thought just in having to participate in conversations, with some of the other, marketing folks and colleagues that I work with, and then answering some of that. And so it certainly has been something that has been an opportunity to kind of grow, move beyond just the typical finance and accounting experience, and to draw upon that skill set. But as you said, to help take advantage of a lot of other different aspects. So
Yeah. Well, Brad, we appreciate all you do for Greystone, for our clients, customers, and people we work with. Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing with us a little bit today more about you and about Greystone.
appreciate it. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
All right.